Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. Here, we're going to talk about a very special woman from the Qing Dynasty, Empress Xiaoxian, of the Neohulu clan. She's the historical prototype for Zhen Huan in the TV series Legend of Zhen Huan. But Zhen Huan in the TV drama goes through countless palace intrigues, growing from an innocent young girl into a shrewd and capable ruler of the Imperial harem. The real Neohulu, however, had a completely different life. Her story isn't filled with schemes and struggles, but with legend. With perseverance, opportunity, and the filial piety of her son. Until she eventually reached the highest point in her life. So, how did Neohulu, a woman from an ordinary family, gradually become the supreme Empress Dowager during the Qianlong era? What stories did her 85-year-long life hold? Today, we're going to delve into her extraordinary life and take you into the real world of the happiest Empress Dowager of the Qing Dynasty. According to historical records, Neohulu was born in 1693, the 30th year of Kangxi's reign. She belonged to the plain yellow banner of the Manchus. With the surname Neohulu, a renowned clan among the Manchus, 8 great clans. And the plain yellow banner was one of the 3 upper banners, a high-status group. At first glance, you might think that Neohulu came from a powerful Manchu family. But in reality, the opposite was true. Her family was quite ordinary, even somewhat poor. While the Neohulu name was well known, there were many branches within the clan. Some were strong, and some were weak. Neohulu's family belonged to the weak side. Her great-grandfather was Iding, a cousin of Idu, a renowned general in the early Qing dynasty. But their two lines were not close. Idu's family held high titles as first-rank dukes for 4 generations, a powerful and well-established dynasty. But Iding's branch fell into decline with each subsequent generation. By the time we reached Neohulu's grandfather, Wulu, and her father, Lingzhu, the family had already fallen from power. Her father, Lingzhu, held a 4th-rank ceremonial post. But this was in reality a relatively lowly position. Just a high-level attendant in a prince's residence. Responsible for welcoming guests and guiding ceremonies. Far from a seat of real power. This kind of family background was definitely considered humble by Manchu standards. Some historical records and subsequent folk tales suggest that Neohulu may have lived a tough life during her childhood, and even performed hard physical labor. Neohulu's childhood was not rich, it was quite ordinary, with financial struggles. And the family fell upon difficult days. She may have had to help with the heavy household chores, and even do physical work. A rare thing in Manchu noble families at the time. Such an experience forged Neohulu's resilient and simple character, and laid a strong foundation for the hardships she would face later in life. When Neohulu was 13, in the 43rd year of Kangxi's reign, 1704, she was sent to serve in the residence of the 4th prince, Injin. At the time, Injin was not yet a powerful prince. And Neohulu's own status within his residence was even lower. The historical records only state that Neohulu was a Gaji. In Manchu, Gaji means elder sister. A general form of address for women, without implying a high rank. In Injin's residence, there were initially 3 slots for wife and concubines, a principal wife, Di Fujin, and 2 secondary spouses, Ce Fujin. The principal wife was the Ula Nara clan, and the secondary wife was the Li clan. There was still a vacant spot for another secondary wife. When Neohulu first entered his residence, she was neither the principal wife nor a secondary wife, just a Gaji, with very ordinary treatment. 7 years later, in the 50th year of Kangxi's reign, 1710, Injin filled the last secondary wife spot with Nian Gengyao's younger sister, Nian Shi. And it was a marriage personally arranged by the Kangxi emperor. This made Neohulu's own status appear even more inconspicuous by comparison. Let's take a look at the backgrounds of Injin's other consorts. The principal wife, Ulanara, was the daughter of Grand Minister Fayangu. The secondary wife, Li, was the daughter of a prefect, Li Wenqi. And Nian Shi's father, Nian Xiaoling, was a former governor of Huguang. With her brother Nian Gengyao serving as governor of Sichuan, a high provincial official. In contrast, Neohulu was only the daughter of a fourth-rank ceremonial official, with a family background that was much less distinguished than the rest. Life was certainly not easy for her in Injin's residence. The living conditions and her lowly status put her under pressure. More significantly, historical records and folk stories say Neohulu's appearance was not outstanding. Some documents from the Qing Dynasty up to the Republic of China describe her as ordinary in looks. For instance, the scholar Zhou Lian quoted a Qing Dynasty veteran, Mao Guangsheng, stating that Neohulu was unattractive. And her later portrait also shows her as quite ordinary, far from a great beauty, at a time when delicate looks were valued. This further put her at a disadvantage. Additionally, Neohulu remained childless for 6 years after her marriage to Injin, a sign in those days that a wife was not much favored. Therefore, with an ordinary family background, ordinary looks, and a distant relationship with her husband, Neohulu's first few years in Injin's residence were quite difficult. Under normal circumstances, she might have gone through her entire life quietly and inconspicuously, just like many women who married into princes' houses, without ever making a mark. Her days would have been filled with serving Injin and other members of the household, taking care of trivial domestic matters, a monotonous and uninspiring life. But just when there seemed to be no hope for her future, an unexpected opportunity completely changed her fate. The historical records do not provide many details, but a note by Wang Kaiyun, the former curator of the Beiyang government's National History Museum, mentions a noteworthy incident. In the summer of the 49th year of Kangxi's reign, 1710, Injin fell gravely ill, possibly due to a contagious disease. At the time, nobody in his residence was willing to care for him, fearing contagion. Some suggested that Neohulu, the woman with the lowest rank, be the one to care for him, probably because nobody valued her much. To everyone's surprise, Neohulu devoted herself to looking after Injin, working carefully and tirelessly from dawn till dusk for over a month, without a word of complaint. Eventually, Injin recovered, and Neohulu became pregnant during this time. The following year, in Kangxi's 50th year, 1711, Neohulu gave birth to her only child, Hongli, who later became Emperor Qianlong. The birth of this child marked the greatest turning point in her life. At the time, it was the late Kangxi era, and the princes were engaged in a fiercely competitive battle for the throne. Injin, the future Yongle emperor, was in urgent need of a remarkable son to aid him in gaining his father's favor. His first son, Honghu, and his second, Hongyun, had already passed away. Among his remaining children, his third son, Hongshi, had a poor character and fell out of Kangxi's grace. His fifth son, Hongzhou, was of good character but slow in his studies, always lagging a step behind. It was Hongli who stood out, from a young age, for his extraordinary talent, retaining classical texts with ease and outperforming his peers. His cleverness and diligence filled Injin with hope. He naturally chose Hongli as his key protégé, believing that his outstanding performance would help him win Kangxi's favor and enable him to gain an advantage in the battle for the throne. In Kangxi's 61st year, 1722, Kangxi visited Injin's residence, and Injin seized the opportunity to introduce his 12-year-old son to his father. Hongli performed exceptionally. He was clever, well-mannered, and eloquent, and won the deep affection of Kangxi. Kangxi immediately decided to bring Hongli back to the palace to be raised and taught in person. This was a dramatic turning point for Neohulu. Her son's recognition by the emperor not only represented an affirmation of Hongli's ability but also indirectly raised her own status. 4 months later, Kangxi came to visit Injin's residence for dinner. Originally, this family dinner was meant to include only Kangxi, Injin, Hongli, and the principal wife, Ulanara. But Kangxi suddenly asked to see Hongli's mother. Neohulu was summoned to pay her respects. It is recorded in historical texts that upon meeting her, Kangxi was delighted and called her a woman of great blessing. This moment seemed to be a turning point in Neohulu's fate. Before this, Neohulu had been married to Injin for 18 years without any special favors or promotions. She had gotten pregnant only once, and her status remained that of a lowly Gaji. But Kangxi's words opened a new path for her. From then on, Neohulu's life began to follow a completely different trajectory. In November of the same year, Kangxi passed away, and Injin ascended the throne as Yongjing emperor. In Yongjing's first year, 1723, the new emperor began to confer titles upon his consorts. Ulanara was made empress, Nian was made noble consort, Li was made consort Qi. And Neohulu was made consort Qi. While Neohulu was ranked 4th, this was the first time in her life that she had received an official title, a significant rise in her status. This elevation was largely due to the outstanding performance of her son, Hongli. Yongjing placed great hopes in him and, in turn, held his mother in higher regard. Over the following years, Neohulu's position continued to rise, with little effort on her own. In Yongjing's 3rd year, 1725, noble consort Nian fell ill and passed away, making Neohulu the 3rd highest person in the harem. Nian's death removed a strong competitor. Noble consort Nian's brother, Niangengyao, had rendered great service during Yongjing's rise to power. Which is why Yongjing had honored her with a high rank. But after her death, Neohulu's opportunity arose. In Yongjing's 4th year, 1726, consort Qi fell from favor due to her son, Hongshi. Choosing the side of Injin's brother, Insi, instead of his own father, the emperor. As a result, the emperor disowned him, reducing him to a commoner. Consort Qi fell from power and was no longer a significant presence in the harem. Neohulu gradually became the 2nd most powerful person in the imperial harem, second only to the Empress. In the 8th year of Yongjing's reign, 1730, Neohulu's son, Hongli, published his poetry collection Lashan Tang Collection, which includes 1,388 poems and demonstrates his extraordinary talent. This collection not only brought fame to Hongli but also further elevated Neohulu's status. In the same year, Emperor Yongjing formally promoted her to noble consort Shiguefei, making her the only noble consort in the harem. In the 9th year of Yongjing, 1731, Empress Ulanara passed away. And Neohulu became the de facto ruler of the inner palace, managing its affairs. Neohulu's rise may seem smooth and effortless, without much competition. But it was largely due to her son's excellence and the downfall of her rivals. It's worth noting, however, that Neohulu and Yongjing were not particularly close. They had been married for over 30 years. Yet she had become pregnant only once, reflecting their somewhat distant relationship. After the Empress's death, Neohulu was not further promoted to the rank of imperial noble consort or empress. Instead, she remained a noble consort and was put in charge of the inner palace, a precedent that was quite normal in the Qing Dynasty, but a clear sign that she was not exceptionally favored by Yongjing. This is further demonstrated by the treatment of her father's career. When Neohulu married Yongjing, her father, Lingzhu, held a 4th-rank ceremonial post. And even after more than 30 years, Lingzhu remained in the 4th rank, without receiving a promotion. This was unusual in the context of the imperial court and shows that Yongjing's affection for Neohulu did not translate into extensive favors for her family. Nonetheless, Neohulu's greatest blessing was her son, Hongli. In the 13th year of Yongjing, 1735, Yongjing passed away, and Hongli ascended the throne as Emperor Qianlong. Qianlong was profoundly filial toward his mother, and Neohulu's life entered a completely new era. On the day of Qianlong's coronation, he immediately honored his mother with the title Holy Mother Empress Dowager, adding the honorific Chongqing. He also posthumously rewarded Neohulu's ancestors, her great-grandfather Yiding, her grandfather Wulu, and her father Lingzhu, with the title First-Class Duke. He further promoted Lingzhu from fourth-rank ceremonial official to senior minister of the Inner Palace, putting him nearly on par with the Empress Ulanara's father, Fyangu. Qianlong also secured for Lingzhu the privilege of riding a horse within the Forbidden City, a tremendous honor in Qing Dynasty court ceremonies, a clear manifestation of Qianlong's intent to make up for his mother's hardships in her youth, allowing her to enjoy the highest prestige. Furthermore, Qianlong's filial piety toward his mother was not limited to titles and rewards. Every time Qianlong went on tour, whether south, east, northeast, or to Qingda, as long as Neohulu was alive, he would bring her along, allowing her to appreciate the reverence of the people. Neohulu was in good health and lived to be 85, following her son on his journeys without difficulty. Having gone through difficult days in her youth, she preferred a simple lifestyle. For instance, in Qianlong's 20th year, 1755, Qianlong invited her to appreciate the peach blossoms in the Yuanming garden. But she said that, instead of peach blossoms, she preferred the fields of wheat. Qianlong then wrote a poem in her honor, commemoration of accompanying the Empress Dowager to view peach blossoms in the royal garden, recording this warm moment. The poem reads, "After the rain, the garden resonates with bird songs, the peach trees blossom pure and clear. Yet there's a kind of happiness in honoring loyalty, a happiness forged alongside the green shoots of wheat." This reflects not only their deep mother-son bond but also Neohulu's simplicity in lifestyle. It's worth noting that Neohulu's birthday celebration was a manifestation of Qianlong's filial piety. In Qianlong's 16th year, 1751, when she turned 60, Qianlong arranged for numerous opera stages to be constructed along the route from Changchun Garden to the Forbidden City, allowing his mother to watch the shows as she proceeded. The celebration was so grand that the streets were filled with spectators. Extending from Xihua Gate to Gaoliang Bridge, a distance of over 10 miles, with opera platforms set up side by side, and a riotous blend of southern and northern opera performed in turn. The people crowded together, eager to celebrate alongside their Empress Dowager. Emperor Qianlong even personally cleared the way for his mother, and civil and military officials, as well as ordinary people in the capital, came forward to celebrate. Neohulu, although delighted, came from a modest background and was quite frugal by nature. She felt the celebration was too extravagant. When she turned 70, she voluntarily asked Qianlong to simplify the ceremonies. However, Qianlong's style was extravagant, and by her 80th birthday, the celebration was even grander than when she turned 60. It's particularly noteworthy that a year before Neohulu's 80th birthday, Qianlong turned 60. The mother was 80 and the son 60. Qianlong regarded this as a momentous blessing and announced a nationwide exemption from taxes for a year in celebration of his mother's birthday. It is recorded in historical documents that Qianlong said, "This year I celebrate my 60th birthday, and next year we celebrate Her Majesty's 80th birthday, universal happiness and peace will reign." This is something unprecedented in history. Qianlong not only wanted his mother to be happy but also hoped the whole world would remember her kindness. Therefore, the deep bond between Neohulu and Qianlong permeated the last years of her life. In the first month of Qianlong's 42nd year, 1777, 85-year-old Neohulu fell ill. The 67-year-old Qianlong rushed to her side, personally kept her company, and cared for her health. Neohulu, not wishing to make her son worried, kept up a strong demeanor, but her condition continued to worsen. On March 2, Neohulu knew that her time was up. Qianlong stayed by her bedside and listened as she shared her heartfelt thoughts. Neohulu reflected upon her life, stating that her virtue was not enough. It was by heaven's blessing that she was fortunate to have a son like Qianlong. She spoke of their years together, the happiness of accompanying him on his journeys, and her understanding of his hardships in securing peace in the empire. She said, "The emperor pacifies the Dzungars and the Uyghurs, extending happiness far and wide. In recent years, 2 campaigns against the Jinchuan have kept him busy, day and night, until great peace and stability were achieved." Neohulu had personally witnessed Qianlong's struggles but could do little except wait for his eventual triumph. She then reminded Qianlong not to be overly sad, state affairs were more important, and suggested that the period of mourning be kept to a single month. After that, Neohulu passed away peacefully. Qianlong was inconsolable. He cried until he was at a loss, and for a whole day he neither ate nor drank, keeping a vigil by his mother's coffin. The historical record says Qianlong personally prepared his mother's funeral, cutting his own hair, wearing plain garments, and kneeling to receive her coffin. Though Neohulu had suggested a period of only a month of mourning, Qianlong insisted on honoring her for a full 100 days. He also chose for her the posthumous title, Xiashengxian Empress, to show his eternal remembrance. On the first night of the wake, Qianlong wrote a profoundly moving poem, "Who will identify the path forward after me?" Meaning there was no one left to guide him. 100 days later, Qianlong accompanied his mother's coffin to be entombed in Taidong Mausoleum. According to historical commentators, Neohulu, this woman who rose from an ordinary Gaji, young lady, to become the longest-lived Empress Dowager of the Qing Dynasty, lived for 85 years. Her story is a tale of transformation from a lowly birth to great prestige. She came from a modest background and remained quietly in the background during her youth. Yet a twist of fate, giving birth to Qianlong, completely changed her future. Neohulu's rise was not forged by conflict but by the excellence of her son and her own good fortune. While her relationship with the Yongle emperor was somewhat distant, the deep bond of mother and son made her later years happy and content. Compared to the Zhen Huan of popular TV series, Neohulu was more akin to a normal woman, resilient, kind, and ultimately a happy Empress Dowager of the Qing Dynasty. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.